Hey, what's up? It's Nick Poliokini, and it is part two of an incredible sit-down. We're in conversation with Nick Poliokini. My guest today is BT McNicholl, who is the producing artistic director, correct? Got it right. So many titles. Here at the La Mirada Theater for the Performing Arts. Again, check. But if you did not catch part one of our conversation, I really encourage you to go back. Go to the show notes, thisweekofwithnick.com. You can go to the link in bio at Nick Poliokini or This Week of a Nick on Instagram. Go back and be sure to catch it no matter what the situation may be, because as I, am going to put my stamp on it and saying it was such an involved and deep conversation, which even if you're not a part of the performing arts, maybe if you don't have a media background or that's not where your passion lies, so much of our conversation really applied to what you do and how you develop yourself and growing and, the ebb and flow of life. Yeah. So I think it was great that way. But this time I'm going to pass things back over to BT because we want to talk about his grand adventure. He started out in Connecticut as a child, and that was the beginning. He moved to Manhattan, and then at some point, and we're going to talk about that now, he came here to the West Coast to grace us with his presence. So tell me what it was like deciding to make that move once the opportunity, which you can tell us what the opportunity was presented to you. But what was that like? Because that's a huge culture shift.
Yeah, it was. And it was not an easy decision to make. So the opportunity was I was running a theater in the New York area, 45 minutes from Broadway, a beautiful theater. And then this opportunity came up. Now, I'd heard of La Mirada Theater, but I'd never been to it. So I came out a few times to see it as part of the interview process. And they made me the offer. And it took me a while to finally say yes, because obviously I was leaving New York, where I'd spent 20 years on Broadway shows, and which is not that you can't leave it. It's just it was, as you say, a big change. Mm-hmm. But, and here's the thing that's unique about this space, which I'd love to talk about, which is this is the only theater of the many theaters, many thousands of theaters in the United States, including New York and Broadway, that is owned by a municipality, owned by a government entity.
Okay.
City of La Mirada, that solely funds and supports and self-produces its own art.
Really? Okay.
It's like I always say it's like living in Europe,
No, you're 100%. That's actually the best reference point. And maybe explain that just a little bit, because maybe people aren't quite as familiar with what that would look like.
Right. So the usual model is a city will build a theater, I don't like this one, a performing arts center, a civic center. And they'll say, look, we're the landlords. We built the building, we'll be the landlord, we'll fix the roof, call us if there's a problem. But otherwise, when it comes to the shows in there, we don't want to know anything about it. We'll rent it to you, nonprofit organization.
Yes.
Right? Theater Guild or whatever you're called, for $1 a year. But you have to raise the money for your shows. You can choose the shows, but sell the tickets, it's all on you. We don't want to know about it. That's the typical model, right? That's not the case here. The city of La Mirada not only built this beautiful building, but they also pay for everything in it. They pay the actors' salaries. They pay the musicians. Okay. They pay for the props, the costumes, the sets, the microphones on their head, the musicians in the pit, the royalties to the playwright, the directors, all of this beautiful furniture, the ticketing system, the marketing, the rehearsal space. All of it is solely supported as a contribution to the arts by the city of La Mirada.
That's amazing. Not to sound like Hugh Hauser, but that's amazing. Like, it really is amazing. And I only say that because, again, your reference point was perfect, because I can think of almost any major, mid to major city here in Southern California or even elsewhere around the country, and it's the name of the city, Theater of the Performing Arts, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And no one, or if there are, and I probably, don't at me, but it's very likely that this is, one of those really unique spaces to think. And if you are not familiar, if you happen to be tuning in and you're not from Southern California, La Mirada is a municipality in LA County, so adjacent to the city of Los Angeles and Hollywood and everything else that you're familiar with, north of Orange County. But yeah, it's its own standalone entity and city. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the biggest of cities either.
No, it's 50,000 people, and it's beautifully run. They give some organization selects the top best run cities in California, which is of course the 6th largest economy in the world, and La Mirada is in the top 5%. They're very well run. It's a wonderful place to work for them. They're very supportive, and they've built this place which looks like a typical regional theater, like Paper Mill or some other place around the country. Shows that open and run for a month each. Professional productions. With professional actors and musicians and designers and directors, but it is supported by the city. Now there's a catch. There's always a catch.
There's always a catch.
And that is that they expect ticket sales to recoup most of those expenses, ideally 80% or higher of those expenses. So there's not a lot of, we have some donors for whom we're very grateful.
Of course.
But that's not the primary source of the funding. The primary source of the funding is the city of La Mirada and the city council, which approves those expenses as a contribution to the arts, and to them we're very grateful. They're the ones, when you come here at what we call popular prices,
Yes.
Somebody is making up that difference, and that's the city of La Mirada. So I always say, when somebody says something nice about the theater, and I'm always grateful to hear it, I try to follow it up with thank you, but thank the city council and thank the city of La Mirada, because they're the ones that are really the founders of the feast, and they are the ones who make everything possible here.
See, that's wild. And so if you know me and have known me over the last 17 years, you know that I am a big part of KFI AM 640 here in Los Angeles. And Bill Handel, with the Bill Handel Show, mornings on KFI right now from 6 to 9, is a huge fan of La Mirada Theater specifically. In fact, he will be here, hopefully a few shows this season. But it's amazing because I guarantee, knowing Bill, that there could be a certain amount of that, specifically why he is so dedicated to this theater, regional theater company, as opposed to many of the other incredible theater companies that are around Southern California, because it's been one of his favorites for many, many years. Now, going back to you coming here from the East Coast to the West Coast, and that whole culture shift and that shock, I mean, this is absolutely epic. It's amazing what La Mirada Theater is and provides the community, but what is it like for you?
Well, obviously, I miss the change of seasons only because I grew up with it.
Of course. That's okay, he's from Connecticut. Like,
Connecticut,
they actually know what spring, summer, winter, and fall, or fall and winter are. We have none of that here.
Right.
So,
and I think it builds in a kind of urgency, actually. Somebody pointed this out. This is not my idea, but I think it's true. When you live with the four seasons, it builds in a kind of urgency to your life. By way of example, do you want to go to the beach? Well, you better do it. You have June, July, and August to do it. And then you can't. Do you want to go skiing or play? You have to do those in these months. It forces you to really pay attention to time. And out here, everything sort of blends. I mean, it gets a little hot, it gets a little cold, but the differential is not all that great. And the driving culture is completely different. It just is a different way of living. We don't have more than 3 lanes on the East Coast when we're driving. There's the right lane, the middle lane, and the left lane, and that's it. Here you can have many lanes. What does that mean? Well, that means when you're driving there, if you want to get off, you can get over to that lane very quickly and get out. Here, if you haven't thought of it a mile ahead, there's the exit. You got to go on to the next one. But so it was interesting when I got here, and I said, let's take a look at where our audience comes from. So we got a heat map.
Got it.
And I noticed that it was red, or orange, or red, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. I said, "What's that? Why does it just stop there?" I said, "Well, that's the 405, or that's the 5, or whatever it was, And I said, well, "What's that?" I said, "Well, if you live on one side, you'll come here, and the other side, you don't." So it's really been a shift. Again, something we just never think about on the East Coast, which is, there's people don't like to drive more than a half an hour, basically. That's pick your number, but everybody has their limits.
Correct.
And that's something that we've really focused on here, and said, okay, how does that affect what we do? Who patrons that we serve, and how do we grow? So for me coming out here, it was obviously a culture shock. It was, there's no theater district per se in LA. We have the Music Center, where I live right nearby. So that's sort of your Lincoln Center.
Correct.
Your equivalent. It's
wow, that's generous. But yes.
No, the Music Center is a beautiful facility.
It is a stunning facility, and
they've done a very
regularly,
nice job renovating it, and so that you have that. But there's no central theater district like you have in New York and London. Paris, where I spent a lot of time working, also does not have a theater district. It's, they have these little theaters in neighborhoods. It's
Correct.
Very unusual. So it's not, but the difference is that's a subway city. It has a very, very good public transit system. So here, it's spread out, and there's no public effective public transit system.
Sure, of course.
Not that you don't have one, but it's not as effective as it would need to be to support the disparate placement of all the theaters. Having said that, there's so many people who are interested in the arts here, so many people who perform in the arts or are engaged in the arts on both sides of the table. So we had to focus on here, well, our focus has been, how do we differentiate ourselves from these other wonderful theater companies, South Coast Rep, the Geffen, Pasadena Playhouse, all these wonderful places? Well, we have a stage that's larger than those theaters.
It's huge.
It's a Broadway-sized theater.
Very much so.
I say, our theater's as big as the theater in New York where Les Mis played, the Imperial. Hard to imagine, but it's that big. So we've got this big stage, and we're a Tony-nominated theater.
This is pretty epic, seriously.
Right? Which not a lot of theaters can say. We're a Tony-nominated theater, and that produces revivals and new work. And how can we differentiate ourselves from these other wonderful theaters? Well, a few things. One is we have free parking.
That's true.
Which is a big deal.
Huge deal.
And we've tried to create a space where you can see shows that these are not going to be the shows that you see at the Pantages,
Sure.
or the Segerstrom, for example, because those are shows coming straight off from New York. They have the tours coming through,
right?
And the Amundsen to some extent the same. So we're not going to get Hamilton. We're not going to get Wicked. They'll get those shows first. They're going to get Shucked or whatever the latest thing is on Broadway. So we don't have that. So we don't have the currency of the new titles. But what do we have? Well, we have the experience. And that, I think, is where our niche is. We have the free parking. You come in, we have this beautiful lobby. It's very homey, very cozy. And then we have this huge auditorium with perfect sight lines and a great sound system. So you experience the show, and we do them at popular prices. And we do shows that will leave you hopefully uplifted and or engaged in some way. So we're very sensitive to all those things. It's about the amenities that we're bringing to the table. The addition of this outdoor patio cafe, which took us some time to put together, but now you can have something to eat before the show and drink before the show outside before you go in, and you can go there during intermission or even after the show. So all those things are important. We're turning the upstairs lounge, which was sort of an underused space, into a cabaret and jazz lounge and stand-up comedy room. That'll be done a year from now, so we'll have another performing space. And it's nice because there's really nothing quite like it between LA and Anaheim.
True.
We're right in the middle, and it'll be a unique space where people can enjoy that kind of entertainment. So it's all about, what is the experience of being here. I will say it was interesting when we were coming up with our mission statement, and we had a bunch of input sessions from everybody who worked here. All the stakeholders except me. I recused myself. I really wanted to hear what the staff had to say here and the volunteers had to say. And the woman the consultant who ran the sessions for us said something interesting to me. She said, I do this all the time, all over the country for different theaters. She said, what's interesting about this group was they all felt it was their theater. They were all very well informed about what was going on in it. They all felt it was their business, which I love. And when they made when they crafted their mission statement, they said they wanted to create first class entertainment in a welcoming, patron focused environment. And that came from them.
That's
not
really...
me. I endorse that. I support that.
No, I understand that.
But I was so happy to hear that their focus is on welcoming and being patron-focused, or patron-centered environment. They want to make sure that when you come here, our focus is on you, the patron, on stage and in every step you take getting to your seat and leaving when you go out. So I'm obsessed with that part of it. If you've heard some buzzing in the background.
I was going to say, because I was going to say, no, if you are hearing that buzzing, that BT just referenced.
That's part of one of the things that we've started doing, which is I'm obsessed with the way Disney does things, who isn't. One thing I love about Disney is when you go to Disney, you paid your gajillion dollars to get through the parking lot.
Indeed.
When you get there, you go through and you see that bed of flowers.
Yes.
With Mickey, and you just know, you haven't even gone on a ride yet. But I'll tell you, you just know you're in for a magical day
Yes.
Because where else are you going to see that, right? But the way people feel as they approach your experience is important. I ended up doing a lot of work for a lot of the parks in Florida, various different companies, Busch Gardens, and to some extent Disney, but in a different way. And one thing I noticed, even when times were bad, even when there were downturns in the economic forecast, the one thing they never skimped on was how the facilities were landscaped and taken care of. They just knew that that was so important, and we brought that here. So now, before every performance, we blow out all of the debris. There's no twigs, there's no leaves, because when you come up to see a show here, it has to be pristine. And we really focus on this. You know, the lobby spaces have all been renovated, reupholstered. The ticket boxes are custom made. You won't get them anywhere else. They were custom made, custom designed to match the wood that's existing here now with an exact stain of them. So the stain matches exactly. So when you come in, it all feels of a piece. Now, I always say this to the folks we work with here. I said the audience will never know that. They're not going to look and say, "Oh, look at that ticket box. It looks just like the wood, and I bet they even matched the stain." They're not going to say that, but they will feel it. They will sense it.
Yeah, I was going to say that attention to detail, and Disney is the perfect reference for it, because you may be akin to a team of Imagineers here, and looking at it through that lens, because it's the things that you don't notice as a patron of the arts or going into any facility. It's the cleanliness of a space. It's the cleanliness of the bathrooms. It's the, as you said, making sure all the leaves are out. It's such an attention to detail that no one notices until they do.
Right.
But it's usually in a negative side because something isn't there.
Yeah, somebody once said about, you never notice the food at a wedding unless it's bad.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you should just be enjoying, if you go to a wedding, you just want to enjoy the experience, celebrate that couple, each other, the people around you. That food should just be part of it. It should not get in your way. It should just be, help to be a step on the way of enjoying that day.
Right.
And it's like that. When you come here, the folks in the box office, I say, you're our first line of defense. You are the first introduction to the theater. I say, the show starts at the curb.
It's true.
Right? And when somebody gets somebody on the phone who's knowledgeable, pleasant, helpful, when they come up, if the ushers look professional, if they smile, if they take your ticket, if they welcome you, and they know where the doors are, and they point you in the right direction, they're helpful, all the aggregates to an experience of being at the theater. So by the time they sit down and they're about to watch the show, and hopefully it's, every show's great.
Of course.
Right? But even if they're inclined to like it.
Yeah.
They're inclined to say, I'm happy I'm here, and now I'm ready to receive, like a catcher's mitt, I'm ready to receive the show and engage in the show, be on the front foot because I'm happy to be here. That's important. And so I really do believe the show begins at the curb. I believe everybody here is doing their part in making a successful outing to live performance, whether it's one of our plays, a concert, a dance piece, whatever it is. It's all part of that experience. And I think the public today, patrons, don't separate that. Now, you and I, for example,
of course.
You and I will go see some show we really want to see. I don't care where it is, man. I'll go and see it in some basement.
In a dive. No, on a regular.
But I want to see that artist. I want to see that show. I don't care where it is. I'll deal with the dirty whatever. But that's, because we're crazy.
That's not wrong.
And we're obsessed. We're
That's very
obsessed with
true.
it, right? But that's sort of inside baseball. For the patrons, the public who comes in, they don't separate it. It's all of a piece for them. And if you could have the greatest show in the world on the stage, and if they had a bad experience getting their tickets or parking or whatever it was, they'll be grumpy.
Right.
And we don't want that. We want the experience of coming here to be first class and enjoyable from the time you park your car to the time you exit to your car.
And I think that value that's added there also creates brand loyalty, and not to use the new, modern buzzwords of brands, but La Mirada Theater is a brand. And also with your subscribers, it's really, you have built a trust, you have built an experience that they don't even think about the cost of what is involved.
I wish that were the case.
They do.
And we're sensitive to that too.
No, right.
But we do feel about that, yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, even though we all worry about our pennies, which is funny because you can't even get an actual penny anymore.
I know, right?
But we all worry about our finances, specifically how we choose to use that disposable income. And having a beautiful space like La Mirada Theater with incredible world-class productions and shows. And I want to talk briefly, I want to get into what, the season looks like, but also you did reference, it's not just the musicals. You have other performances that happen here.
Yes,
you have quite
I'm so glad you mentioned
a
that.
large
Yes.
performance. So while you may not be like us and all about the musicals, or even you may not want to see one of those, maybe you don't want to come see Hamlet or something to that effect, one of the straight plays, but you're really into music or you're really into dance. You have those opportunities at this facility. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I owe you $10 to bring that. So thank you. So here's where we're different from most other regional theaters, like a paper mill, just by way of example, right? Is they'll do their season of 5 plays and musicals, right? Each one runs a month, and that's primarily their focus. We do that, but then we also do what they call presenting, which is something like Cerritos.
Yes, Cerritos Performing Arts Center does as well.
And other theaters do too. But we'll do, a Tony Bennett, or we'll do, Terry Fader, who's a ventriloquist, or we'll do Gladys Knight, or, a dance piece, or, a mariachi show, magicians, holiday shows, the Christmas with the Celts. We'll do these one-night shows, these presentations, and we do 30 of those a year. Now, when I got here, they used to do maybe 5, 7 of those a year. And I said, let's do 30. And I didn't do like 5, and then 8, then 9, then 15, then 20, then 25, then 30. We went from 5 to 30 in 1 year.
Yeah. You like 0 to 60.
Let's just do it.
Great.
We'll rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just do it.
Shelby Mustang.
Right. And with country music and all this. And so within those 30 dates, those 30 opportunities, we try to do a little something for everybody. So you're gonna have your rock and roll, you're gonna have your ragtime, you're gonna have your dance piece, you're gonna have your mariachi, you're gonna have Theater Works USA shows for kids. We're gonna have a Carpenters Tribute Act, whatever it is. We want to have a little something for everybody. And what's happened as a result is, when you do a country show, for example, a country music artist, now you start advertising on the country music station.
True.
So now people who've never heard of La Mirada Theater are hearing about it just because you're advertising on that station. So what happens is, now this year we set a record for ticket sales for these presentations. We're going to have more than 25,000 people just come see those. And that may be the only time they come in the building.
That's wild.
Right?
And now, just the numbers, like the sheer numbers on that for the space and being those one-offs.
Right.
That's
so
incredible.
You're doing 30 of them a year, and you're having 25,000, but that's almost like almost 1,000 people per show. Sure. Not quite. You can do the math. But that's a lot of people. And they're discovering the space, and now they may be interested in one of the plays you're doing, maybe not. But the point is, the city built this place in 1977 as a place for the performing arts, so people would come and experience live entertainment. And a lot of that is plays. But there's other things that people want to see, and other types of music they enjoy. And you and I love plays, but not everybody loves plays.
Yeah.
So they want to come hear a band, they want to come hear some rock and roll, Martin Barr, Jethro Tull was here. They come for that, and that's great. And it brings them in the door, they discover the facility, and it's being used, for the performing arts in whatever way that, turns out to be. So that's been a passion of mine since I got here, which was to expand the programming. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for the staff here. It's a very small staff, a very dedicated staff. They're small but mighty. They're terrific. All of them, I can't say enough about them. Backstage, on stage, in the admin office, the marketing, the box office, they're all heroes. Front of staff, they're all so committed and focused on the city's mission, which is dedicated to service. And I bring that up all the time. We're all city employees here in the arts. It's a gift. It's a privilege to be able to be in the arts and supported in this way. And the city's mission is our mission, which is dedicated to service to the patrons, to each other, and to the artists.
And that speaks to your volunteers as well.
Oh, God.
Because that, again, is a perfect transition into talking about the volunteers.
Oh, my
because
God.
it's so service-based.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a separate organization for them. They're called the Friends of the Theater. They're their own 501c3 nonprofit group. And the way it started was the city council, there's 5 people on the city council, and when the theater was founded in 1977, each of those 5 city council members was allowed to choose 20 people to be a friend of the theater and the ushers, right? Called the Friends of the Theater.
Okay.
So they got to choose the first 100 ushers, and the names of those folks are on the plaque as you enter on the left-hand side,
Okay.
memorialized. We have over 100 people now, and you had to be from the city of La Mirada at the time.
See, that's even better.
Okay.
So talk about hometown heroes.
Yeah,
kind of
that's
thing.
how it started. Now we've expanded that. We have wonderful people from all the surrounding communities, and they're all allowed to, to be here and be part of it. And they're very active. They're very engaged, and we love that. And they do a tremendous job. And they're volunteers. I feel like they're part of the fabric of this theater as much as anybody else. We have those folks. We have the historians. Now we've started a historians group that's putting together the history of this incredible space, and looking back over the treasure trove of stars who've played here and the shows we've done. There's all sorts of opportunities here for volunteers, not just ushering. But we depend upon those folks. We value them. We celebrate them, and we're so grateful for their involvement. So it really is it's a space where everybody chips in from their own point of view, from their own vantage point and their own discipline to create the experience that the audience has here, and we're all about that. And then there's the shows on the stage, obviously, which are produced with McCoy Rigby Entertainment. Currently, they're the folks who've been doing it now for 30 years. They've been here, and it's a partnership between the city and them. The city, again, finances the whole thing through McCoy Rigby. And we make a lot of this, we choose the seasons together, we choose the directors, the creative teams. Some people, and this is a big thing we need to clear up, a lot of people think when we do the talkbacks, they'll say to the actors, "This is great, where are you going next with this show?" And they think it's a touring show. It's not a touring show.
It's not.
These shows are built from the ground up, selected, cast, rehearsed, specifically for this audience at this theater and only at this theater. Now, occasionally the show will go to another venue. Of
course.
That does happen. But primarily they're created just for you. Just for you. It's a bespoke work of art that is being presented to you for these 4 weeks, only here, only at La Mirada Theater. That's something else that is unique, and again, it's something that is supported by the city. So the volunteers are part of that. They're not on the stage, but we have an insert in the flyer, a flyer that's in the program coming out this week during Jersey Boys. It's an invitation for people to volunteer, and the headline is, join our cast of volunteers. Disney has that,
Of course, cast members across the board.
But we don't think of quite the same way, but they are part and parcel of putting on the show, just from the other side of the door.
I think that's great, and I think I want to talk about briefly history, because that's a big part of La Mirada Theater, and also it has to do a lot with this Tony, and also your production team or your producing partners, because there's some very, very famous person that you may or may not know who is, I don't know, would this be their home theater? So would that be this specific character's originator?
Right, yes.
And not to pull you along to bring you over, but because I don't want to be the one that gets to say this person's name.
You can say it.
Kathy Rigby. Kathy Rigby is the originator of Peter Pan.
Yes.
And if you are not familiar with Kathy Rigby, then you've got homework to do.
Absolutely.
You can ask Siri, like Bill Handel does, or you can do a little bit of Wikipedia searching. But Kathy Rigby is when Peter Pan went to the theater, went to Broadway, and I don't know all the facts, and I'm sure BT is much better at them than I am, but she originated the role, and she is also a world-class gymnast, and I think that's an even more interesting thing, and this kind of goes to our part one conversation in that there's so much involved with our industry of entertainment that it doesn't matter what your background is or where you started, you really can take your skills and your talent and apply them elsewhere. Right. So if that is, as BT has said so eloquently, if it is something that you think about and it is something that you want to do, and you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, that's the only thing you want to do, there's a home for you. You just got to find the home. So you got to do a little bit of shopping. You got to go, find a real estate agent and help you find that spot. But talk to me a little bit about that partnership and what it looks like with that whole background.
Yeah, well, happy to talk about, she's a lovely lady, Kathy Rigby, and she became famous for being an Olympian.
Right.
Right.
I should say that, correct.
She was a world famous Olympian who then transitioned into the performing arts, and Mary Martin, of course, was the first Peter Pan. Sandy Duncan did it then later, and then the third one on Broadway at least was
Yes.
Kathy Rigby as Peter Pan, and it's a show that started here, went to Broadway, made 2 stops on Broadway. It was nominated for Best Musical Revival. There's our Tony nomination as a result. She was nominated for Best Actress in a Musical, and it's been done here. You know, it was done here. I think 2012 or 13. I think was the last time they did it here when it was sort of a farewell performance in it.
And that's something to say too. She continued to do this role for many years.
Yes.
And stunning. And I mean, you can see pictures. Again, you want to do the homework, do the Googling. But like, she really embodied Peter and that youth and Bim and Bigger all the way through until, 2013.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it was captured. A&E Television filmed it, and it's on Broadway HD. So it's nice that people can still enjoy it.
Of course.
So it's there for everybody to see. And it was an Emmy award-winning TV special. So fortunately, that's been captured. That lightning in a bottle has been captured. But the way the Broadway series works is very interesting. So the city of La Mirada, when they opened the theater, it started with Tony Bennett, who's over my shoulder here. Tony Bennett opened the theater in 1977, and then when we did our 40th, we brought him back.
Oh, wow. Okay, got it.
Which was exciting for us. But they always decided they knew that they wanted a theater series here. But they themselves didn't have the core competency to start doing a theater series. So they hired a third party to execute.
So someone who had that expertise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They would fund it, but they wanted somebody to handle the nuts and bolts of it. So they hired a guy named Herb Rogers, who lived in Beverly Hills, and he was famous for taking shows to Hawaii, Broadway shows with like Carol Channing and Hello Dolly in Hawaii. So he lived in Beverly Hills, and they engaged him, and he was the one who actually did the series the first 17 years. He started the series here.
Really?
Herb Rogers, and so his formula was famous TV or movie star in some popular play.
Got it.
Donald O'Connor in some Neil Simon play. Don Knotts in some comedy.
Okay.
So many stars came through. Jane Powell. I can't even begin to list them all, but Bob Crane, who was in Hogan's Heroes, popular 60s sitcom. But these were TV and movie stars, known to audiences here, and they all lived in LA, so they would just come out and do the show and go home. So that went on for 17 years.
That's amazing.
So Herb Rogers did that for 17 years, and finally they decided to make a change. That's when Tom and Kathy came in, and they flipped the model. They said, okay, no stars, with the exception of our wonderful Kathy Rigby. We have had some stars, primarily the shows are the stars.
Sure. So
they changed that model around, and now they've been the Herb Rogers for the last 30 years. So it's a partnership where the company that's hired to produce the shows, executive produce the shows, you might want to call it that, has always been a third party entity hired by the city.
Okay.
They're a vendor to the city, and the city pays them their fee to execute the work, and they also pay for all the production costs. And that's all city. That's all from the city. So that's kind of the relationship that we have, and that's kind of how it all started. And so part of our work with the historians group is celebrating those early years, the Herb Rogers years, as well as the McCoy Rigby years. And all the one-night presentations that came in, all the stars that came in. Leonard Nimoy was here, Vincent Price, all these stars that came through, Blackstone the Magician, all these wonderful, Dizzy Gillespie, I could go on and on. But it's been such a rewarding experience to learn about the great history of this place, what this was, the people who've come before us, the shoulders we stand on, and celebrate that rich history. Because I will say, we're 3 years away from our 50th anniversary.
The 50th is on the horizon.
Yes, good for you. 50th anniversary. So we're gearing up for that. We've been at this now for a couple of years with the Historians Society, celebrating all of that. Discovering all that, documenting it. We have a huge database. If you just give me the name of somebody who may have played here, we can put their name in, and it will come up and bring up every show they were in, the program from that production. Susan Egan was here, Stephanie Block, I can name so many famous actors have started in shows here. Whether it was with us or with Whittier Light Opera, which is now Musical Theater West.
Yes.
That they were here for many years. Paul Garman. Paul Garman was the first. He runs Musical Theater West. He was the first house manager here. So it's just been a great joy to learn about all the great artists who crossed this stage, started their careers here, did shows here, and have gone on to great success.
So two things I want to talk about really quickly with Musical Theater West, because we've also had them on in conversation.
Yes.
And specifically, the theater community is very unique because, as we've talked about here, there is obviously a money-making entity and everything to it, but there's a lot of seed talent from one place to another. And so now Musical Theater West calls the Richard and Karen Carpenter Center at Cal State Long Beach their home, as opposed to La Mirada Theater here. But it's amazing because there's not a lot of businesses per se that you have. Sure, there's a little bit of fun rivalry, but there still remains camaraderie. As you've listened to BT talk about all the people that he has known throughout the years and has worked with. And, I'm sure there's plenty of stories about where the bodies are buried for the positives and the negatives, but it's one of those industries that's very interesting where, so much we talk about it's who you know. And this is also a very big industry of who knows you, maybe even more so, because they know what you're capable of, they know what your talents are, and they know that you're going to slot into, as you've referenced, this production or that production.
Yeah, good point.
Because it's a very interesting, it's a different
I love
element
that. It's
for
not
that.
just who you know, it's who knows you. That's very good. I've never heard that.
That's something I've discovered through doing this, because I'm able to go into spaces that most people aren't. And it's mostly because people know me.
Right.
And know what I'm capable of. So it's not who I know, it's who knows me and what I can bring. So, and I think that's what I really push and encourage people to find in themselves is put your best foot forward. Always, no matter what you're doing, whatever, if it's professionally, if it's that work-life balance, whatever the situation is, because you don't know who's watching.
Absolutely.
And so you really want to be thought of in that capacity of, I know BT can do this. You know who would be a great person to be on that project? Nick would be a great person to be on that.
Right.
So speaking of this, let's look to the future. Do you have youth programs that you work with? Are there any scholarship programs? Is there anything that you do within the community here with La Mirada Theater?
Very good question. So we have programs for young audiences, which the theater work shows primarily, but also other things that we do. So we always have a series of four, hopefully four, maybe even 5 shows that bring young people in. Now, in order to do that, you can only charge $9 or $12. We've been charging $9 or $12 for when $9 and $12 was a lot of money, But again, the shows cost well more than that.
Of course, a few bucks more.
Who's making it possible? The city of La Mirada. Again, thanks to them. They're the ones who make it possible. Have this quality entertainment, because I think it's important. This is something that going back to part 1 for a minute.
Yeah, of course.
The thing I was fortunate about, and this is just because where I got put on the earth, right?
No,
which I didn't choose. I just got lucky, which was I got to do my plays in Connecticut, in my suburb of Connecticut, and then I got to go see the very best.
Right. No, true.
It wasn't always good.
That's very true as well.
I saw 14
Indeed.
flops in a row in previews. I was like the kiss of death when I walked in, I guess. But it was done at a very high level. And then I'd get to come back and then try it out myself. I'd say, oh, I see. That's the way it's supposed to be done. I'm going to try that, right?
Got it.
So I think it's important that, especially for young people coming up in the arts, and you never know who those people are.
Indeed.
That they get to do it on their own in their schools or their dance classes or whatever they're singing, whatever their orchestras, and then they come to see somebody doing it at a world-class level, so they can say, oh, I see, now that's how it's supposed to be done. Or I want to do that, right? That's how we all got started.
Of course it is.
I want to do that. So it's important that we present first-class productions, first-class artists here, so that they have access to, people who can do it better than they can currently do it, right? And then they can aspire to that. That's so important. You have to see it in real time and space. Great artistry. There's no substitution for that, right?
No, that's true.
So in a way, that's the way we educate.
I think it's great.
The youth and the people who are up and coming, or adults who want to do it. By the way, we have the art around the building is very interesting. There was you probably don't know this, but the city of La Mirada has one of the largest municipal art collections in the state of California.
No idea.
Right?
That's wild.
Right? And where is that collection? It's on our walls.
Amazing.
For 25 years, approximately, there was an art exhibition every year called the Fiesta de Artes out here in front of the theater. And the city of La Mirada, to its credit, would commit to buying the winning piece of art sight unseen. They just said,
Really?
whatever you choose, and we're not going to choose it, but whatever you choose,
Okay.
we are going to buy for the grand sum of $1,000, which back in 1968,
Is it healthy
was
chunk
a
of
lot of
change?
money, right?
No, true.
62, it was a lot of money. Eventually, it went up to 2,000 in the 70s. But they said we're going to, and so they would just buy it. Said whatever you choose, we'll buy, and we'll put in our, and that's how they started making collections. So between 1962 and 1986, they bought every award-winning piece of art. When I got here, I discovered this, and I found some paintings like in closets and hallways and all. I said, wait a second, what is this? Let's bring this out. We brought it out, we've cleaned it up, we've professionally mounted it and shown it off, and it is an incredible collection. And a lot of these artists, you'll go to the Broad, you'll go to many major museums around California and around the world, and you will see that other works by these same artists are in those collections. And it's something that we're about to celebrate, because what's going to happen is you're going to eventually see little placards next to all the artwork telling you about those artists, and we'll be able to do art tours here. So you're getting an art gallery as well as a theater experience all at the same time. And so it's something that we're looking forward to celebrating, because it's another way to experience art, not just in live performance, but in the fine arts, right in the building. So what we'd love to do, and eventually will do, maybe not in my lifetime, but it's on the roadmap.
Okay.
Is to create an educational wing where we are giving kids the opportunity to work on our stage, in our rehearsal hall, which we own and operate, as well as see things on stage with great teaching artists. And the reason I mentioned about the paintings, my thought there was the first collection the first painting in our collection was painted by a woman in the early 60s, and she was 90 years old when she started the painting.
Okay.
Born in the late 1800s.
Yes.
And there she is at the age of 90, starting to paint, and her painting becomes our first award-winning addition to this collection. So my point is, it's not just about training young people.
Of course.
It's about training people of all ages, adult stand-up, playwriting, directing, set design, whatever it is. A young person can do it, older people can do it as well. To be able to say, I started painting in my late 80s or early 90s, and I'm so good that I was able to create an award-winning piece of art,
right,
is incredible. And I think, and why not? So when I say an educational wing, I don't mean to say it's just for young people.
No.
I mean, it's people for all ages, because you never know where your artistry comes from, or at what point in your life, you can tap into it. So that's on the roadmap. First things first, but it will come. It will come.
I think that's amazing. And I think there's so many different ways to give back. And you've described many of them here beautifully, because so many times it's like, this is the benchmark. This is how you're supposed to do it. Well, in case you didn't notice, this guy here who goes from 5 to 30 when we're talking about freestanding things, through freestanding productions outside of a season, the sky's the limit. So I'm pretty confident that wing may show up before your lifetime.
Maybe.
Only because it takes people with passion and drive and dedication. Again, we've talked about it in part 1. We're talking about it again now, of really pouring yourself into it. But with an organization like La Mirada Theater and the Friends of La Mirada Theater organization, a separate entity, you really have a group of people that are passionate. And even like we've referenced earlier, the buzz and din of people that are here, that are walking around and getting work and setting up, because we're literally ahead of one of the previews tonight.
Right.
That as we're sitting down and talking about this,
right,
one of the previews for the current season of Jersey Boys that is opening tomorrow will be happening. So there's so much happening, and I think that's what I love about the arts, is that they specifically are constantly going. There's very few times where there's a lull, except for when you're moving things off the stage and you're getting ready for the next production to come in.
That's right.
Because even if that stage is empty, you still have a single light.
Mm-hmm, the ghost light, yeah.
Correct. And that is always there, and people often again, this is one of those if you know situations, but the ghost light is always there. So there's always something happening in a theater space. So I think that's a great time to talk about what is going on this season.
Yes.
And I've already talked about it. We both talked about it. But Jersey Boys is what's coming up right now. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, that'd be great. Would love to hear about that just because it's here.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. And this just came up this morning because we did a little promotional event with the 4 Jersey Boys this morning. And next year, I'm going to jump ahead for just a second.
Oh, please, by all means.
We're doing next year, spoiler alert, it just came out in Playbill and other places online yesterday. We're doing Fiddler on the Roof starring Jason Alexander. Now, by the way, that show was supposed to have been now.
Okay.
It was supposed to start previews tonight.
Okay.
And we announced it in our brochures last year. And then Jason wasn't available. He had a change in his schedule. So we said, okay, we're going to postpone it till the following season, and we'll figure out when we do that. But now we need a show to fill in that slot. And guess what show that turned out to be?
Jersey Boys,
which we've been wanting to do for years. And it's being directed by T.J. Dawson, whose family was involved as investors in the original production on Broadway. So he has a very strong connection to it. And speaking of, T.J., one thing, he ran, it still does run, 3D theatricals, and they used to do a whole season over at Cerritos. And one thing he used to do, which I loved, was when he'd give his curtain speeches, he would say, "Thanks for coming tonight," and he'd do his, talk. He'd say, "And by the way, please go support other theaters in the area, the Pasadena Playhouse, what they're doing at Laguna, or what they're doing at La Mirada." He was so generous in suggesting to people that they go support these other shows. Now, it's just a very generous spirit to be able to do that.
Indeed.
And he's doing that. He's doing the show here. Here's what's interesting about Jersey Boys. It has already set a record. We have, every show we have a sales goal of how many tickets we want to sell and whatnot. It has achieved almost 85% of its sales goal before it has even opened.
See, that
is an all-time record.
That's wild. Okay.
We never had a show with that kind of anticipation before. It's also, next to Little Mermaid, that we did in 2016, the highest-selling show in our almost 50 years here.
Wow.
It's the second highest. Now, Grease was our previous one, just from 2 years ago, and now this is already, or last year, and this has already topped it. It's just been unbelievable, the excitement and the anticipation for this show.
What's so special about it? What do you think sets it apart? What do you think is the draw?
Well, I think it's the songs,
of course,
right?
And give us the background of what Jersey Boys is, if you're not familiar.
Right. So it's the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons and all their incredible songs.
Yes.
Right. And I think it's, what's the secret of programming these days?
Of course.
And because I should also mention that coming out of COVID, before COVID, we were at an all-time high, right? We had COVID.
Yep.
And it was, we shut down like everybody else. And we came back, we said, well, we can't expect too much coming out of COVID because people are, not
completely. And a theater is an intimate space.
Yeah, and
coming
there's
out of
a lot of sensitivity to that. They may not want to all come back. Well, don't you know what happened? We got to the end of the season, which ended within the Heights that year. And I turned to Elizabeth Carlock, who's our box office manager, and brilliant at it. And I said, "Liz, am I crazy? Or are we about to break our all-time record?" She said, "No, we're about to break the all-time." And we did, for attendance and revenue.
Okay.
We couldn't believe it. Coming out of COVID, of all things. So then that was like it. The next year, lightning's not going to strike twice.
No.
So then we did the next year, and we got to the end of the season. I said, "Liz, am I crazy? Or are we about to break the record again?" She said, "We're about to." And you know something? We did. Broke that record again for attendance and revenue. Now, I don't know if it's going to strike a third time because we're not at the end yet, but the amount of desire to come out and see shows is palpable.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
people want to see things that make them feel good.
True.
It's a tough world we live in right now for lots of different reasons, which we all know. But when they go, if they're going to leave their house and they're going to come to your theater, they want to feel uplifted. They want to feel empowered. It can be a drama, but even, as long as it's life-affirming in some way, which musicals generally are, they want to know it's going to be a good time. And Jersey Boys has that in spades. It's songs it's a great story, it's a good book, it moves like the wind. It's just a terrific night out in the theater. And that's what they want. And they know it's going to be that. And so, and now it's our job to deliver it, and that's
sure.
And that's what the team is working on right now as we speak. They're doing their final rehearsals. in preparation for tomorrow night's press opening. But that's the trick, is, thinking to yourself, what is our audience, what are they craving, what kind of experience, when we did work on the season and we try to chart it out, I always call it the roller coaster. You want them a good roller coaster. The ups, the downs. That's why musicals are so popular, I think.
I agree.
Because they're cathartic. They allow you to, through the characters on stage, to celebrate too much, to hurt too deep, to love too much. It's all the things you get to do through the characters on stage, which as civilians in our own life, we don't do.
Right.
Right? And going on that roller coaster ride in any given musical is what we try to do with the whole season. So when I look at it, and when Tom and Kathy and I are working on what shows we're going to choose, I always look at the order. We don't want to follow a drama with another drama. If we've done a drama, we want to do a comedy after that. And then we want to do something that's zippy and fun, and then we want to do something grand and epic. So we always try to come up with that. What's that roller coaster? So when you go through at the end of the season, you go, geez, that was great. It wasn't the same thing twice, and they were all different. And
and I was going to say, because this is a perfect example. So you've got Beautiful, the Carole King musical was earlier this season. You also had Mystic Pizza,
brand new show,
which is a brand new show and based on the movie, correct?
Right. Yep, that's correct.
With Julia Roberts, if I remember correctly. Jersey Boys Now, and TJ Dawson, who BT was talking about, is a good friend of mine, and we'll be talking to him as well on In Conversation. And then now we transition into I don't know, this is the pinnacle of the roller coaster for the season, yes, I'm guessing. So what's coming up next after Jersey Boys?
Then we have The Little Mermaid, which again, we did in 2016. It was our all-time highest selling show, and still is. And maybe we'll break that record again. But, it's a great family show. And what I love about it is that it's not the version that was on Broadway. It's one that Glenn Cassell, who's directed it before, he's going to direct it again here. It's a version that he's come up with. Okay. Now on Broadway, they tried to recreate the idea of being underwater with roller skates. Or with roller skates.
Right.
Glenn had a
this
much better
is impressive,
idea.
So make sure to listen to BT on this one.
It's a genius idea. It's so obvious, you wonder why nobody thought of it before. It's so good. But they fly. Yeah. So when they fly...
Just like Kathy Rigby is Peter Pan.
Yes, which also directed by Glenn, by the way.
I was going to say, but I'm saying genius.
Yeah.
Use the resources and like you said with Glenn, do with what you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's perfect.
So when they go, they're underwater, then they go up, up out from under the sea to land. They fly out. And when they come down from through the ocean, they land. It makes such sense, and it's a wonderful production, and it's great for all ages. And he's just done a beautiful job with it. And I'm pretty sure when you see his production, it's the only one that allows to do that particular version of the show. He's the only one who does it. I think it's a terrific way to cap the season. And hopefully, the other thing is, hopefully it will introduce a whole new group of young people to the theater. For some people, many of them, I think, it'll be their first live experience of live theater. And what better way?
No, and I think, and we're in a unique space with Disney, just in general, which we've talked about already, having just had The Little Mermaid live action out most recently, and having a much different representation with those cast members than the animated version that we grew up with in the Disney Renaissance.
Yep.
So I think being able to add a performance like The Little Mermaid and what is coming up here at La Mirada Theater even adds more to that mystique and adds more to it, because it is familiar songs, things that you know, but things that you don't. And I think that's what's more exciting to me, because even as we made a joke, I can't remember if it was in this part or the previous part about Beauty and the Beast, that is incredible. And some of the friends of mine that have been on Broadway and have done the traveling show and have done, Malaysian tours now and everything else with that specific production, the music is timeless, but then you have these additions of things that you don't see.
Yes.
And there's so much going on. I remember attending a performance of Beauty and the Beast over in Fullerton with maybe 3D theatricals, but many years ago, before they were doing Cerritos, and having had the set from Broadway for Beauty and the Beast coming in, and having all of these components. I mean, even going back and pulling the curtain back on this, physique that is definitely not the Broadway person anymore, but having done Chorus Line when I was in it, and I was Mark in Chorus Line, and having worn the costumes from Broadway, the revival at that time period, back when I was in high school and going into college. So there's just so much to it. What can we look forward to? We've talked about so much and so many bucket list items, and 3 years away from the 50th. What can we look forward to? Granted, you can't probably give everything, but for coming seasons or the future here at La Mirada Theater?
Great. Well, I can tell you next season. We just
Okay,
announced
let's do it.
Which is again a season. How are we going to top it? Well, these things just came together. So we're opening with Waitress.
Oh, which is great, which is really, really phenomenal.
A contemporary title, contemporary music. Sarah Bareilles wrote the score, and it's being directed by Abby O'Brien, who was in the room from the first day of rehearsal on Broadway with the show.
Okay, so she is OG across the board.
She knows
Got
the
it.
show backwards, forwards, upside down, and backwards, and she's brought in two Costin and Mayer, who are a TikTok sensation choreographers. So they're coming here to do that. That's going to open our season. So we're so excited about that. And then we're going to follow that with Jason Alexander in Fiddler on the Roof. So one day I was reading an article in American Theater Magazine, an interview with Jason,
Okay.
in which he mentioned in passing,
Got
someday
it.
I'd like to play Tevye. And we were planning on doing Tevye. So I called Tom McCoy, and I hadn't met Jason at that point, but I knew Tom knew who he was. And I said, Tom, you know Jason. Ask him if maybe he'd like to do our production. So we asked Jason. Jason said, well, I might be interested in doing it, but it has to be the right director and the right take on it and all that. And I said, well, he can choose whatever director he wants. And the right design, he can choose whatever designer he wants. Give him whatever he wants to do, we'll do to make it possible. So he chose his friend Lonnie Price, whom he knows from, Merrily We Roll Along.
Right.
Who would be a good choice for it in any event, not just for Jason. And Lonnie was interested, and blah, blah, blah. Here we are. They're both available. They're going to do it here. And I think it's just going to be, I think the production I can't wait to see. He's the right person at the right age at the right time, and Lonnie's going to be a perfect director for it. So we're thrilled about that. We're going to follow that with a play, and we're sorting out, there may be a change of title there, what that's going to be. But we'll do a non-musical play, which we like to do. We did A Few Good Men a few years ago.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right after Young Frankenstein, which I loved.
As that's a great transition.
It is.
Right. No, like you said, though, you're building the anticipation. You're building that arc of the roller coaster,
exactly.
and that's a great one.
From Mel Brooks to Aaron Sorkin, and you do them equally well. That's the aim, right? So we'll do a play, and then we're going to do a show, which I'm happily surprised, is getting a huge reaction when I mention it to people, and I hope you'll have the same reaction. Let's see if it works. Legally Blonde.
Okay.
All right. Good.
That's okay. So I think this is something we haven't really tapped into it. We did tap on it briefly, but these are La Mirada Theater is different, and I only say that to not knock any of the other theater groups, but regional theater is such a unique and special space. So to have something like Legally Blonde, which has garnered so much attention, and again, it's one of those like Mystic Pizza. It is one of those musicals that came from a
movie,
film,
yeah.
And a very popular film with Reese Witherspoon. That sounds amazing. And so that's going to wrap your...
No, not yet.
No, God, there's even more. Okay, wait. Okay, so Legally Blonde, and what do we know about that one?
Legally Blonde, it's going to be your Legally Blonde, the way you want your Legally Blonde, But it has...
Pink all the way.
People have such affection for the film and the musical.
Right.
It's just the right time to bring it back. It's something you haven't seen in a long time. It's not been overexposed. It's not been done everywhere to death. So people are really excited about that. It's your Bye Bye Birdie. It's your Hairspray. It's your Legally Blonde.
Yeah, it's good. And everybody wants to see Bruiser. Everybody wants to see that little chihuahua.
It's fun, and it's going to be in the springtime. It's going to be in April, right in this slot where we are right now in the Jersey Boys slot. So it's just going to be a great time to do it. The spring, it's just the right time to do Legally Blonde. And then we're going to, right on the heels of that, we're going to do Disney's Frozen.
Okay, now this
which is going to blow the roof off.
So incredible because Frozen makes a run through Southern California and has several times. Pantages and Segerstrom specifically are the local to us theaters. But to be able to see it here, that is something that I look forward to. And I only say that outside of being a fan of La Mirada Theater previously, now having so much more history and so much more knowledge from BT, the drive and passion, and especially on such a special musical, which has done so many things for Broadway, has seen so many new up-and-coming performers, seen many different ways of approaching it, even within the same production.
Yeah.
Having a very, very diverse cast, playing Elsa and Anna and Hans and, Kristoff.
And it's a new production. It's not a recreation of the Broadway production. It's a new production that Michael Heitzman's doing. And funny, I missed it on Broadway. I did not see the tour. And I was in London working on Walter Paisley with Jerry Zaks in January. And I had a nice, I said, well, I'm going to go see Frozen because it's still here. And I know we're going to do it next year. Let me go see this show. And it was so good. And they say that was sort of the best version of it. People who were involved told me.
This is on the West End, yes?
On the West End, yeah.
Okay.
And it's closing it's closing in September, I believe. And so I'm glad I got to see it. It was wonderful. And I said, this is going to be great for us. So we're going to finish with Frozen. And we just think it's that season where we just anticipate it's going to go through the roof again. I just think, I personally want to see all those shows. And like I said before, you put on stage what you yourself want to see. That's what all of us do.
No,
right?
It's a guilty pleasure. Kidding.
We choose the projects that we want to see, whatever our aesthetic is. If we like Ibsen and we want to be in Ibsen-like plays or that kind of theater, we do that. And that's what makes that's what makes a horse race. Is that you have different kinds of things all going at the same time, and that's a healthy theater when you have those when we have that going on. So. We think that's going to be a very popular season, and we're excited about that. And then in addition to that, we're having our 30 other events. We're going to have Barry Bostwick here for
fun
for Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay, that I was going to say, because Rocky Horror Picture Show is like my absolute go-to.
Okay, well, you'll have to be here on October 19th.
I will, and my birthday's Halloween.
Then you gotta come.
Yeah, so I will be here for sure. And I was going to say, because I'm used to the midnight showings at the Art Theater in Long Beach. So yeah, of course. So that's exciting.
He's going to be here.
Okay.
Pam Tillis, the huge country star Pam Tillis is going to be here in December. We've got a Michael Jackson show coming called Invincible.
Very cool.
I won't give them all away because we're still putting them all together.
Of course.
But there's mariachi shows. There's a Day of the Dead show. There's a guy who's going to do a silent movie thing for kids. And one day we got the Theater Works coming with El Otro Oz, which is a diverse version of Wizard of Oz. ... which is another great title for kids. There's all sorts of things coming. I won't reveal them all because they're still coming together, but bands, comedians, holiday shows, they're all coming together. And that's going to be another way to expand our horizons and bring in new people and new artists, world-class artists on our stage. The people, jazz, there's a Nutcracker coming, all those things add up to a very diverse season here, an exciting season, and something that hopefully has something for everybody, which I think is our mission and our joy to pursue.
And it really does genuinely sound like you're succeeding. Yeah. I mean, it really is. No, and we're just going to say yes.
Okay.
No, there's no, too often we're taught, especially in our line of work, that humility is an important thing. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to pat yourself on the back. And, there's that.
People say, is it fun? I said, well, I don't know if it's fun, but it's rewarding in the sense that there's nothing better than you put up a play or you book an act, and people come out and the smile, their sense of satisfaction and they're smiling, whatever it is, the reaction, and that's the reward.
Right.
And the guys that I worked with on Broadway shows, all of them game changers. Whether it's Mike or McNicholl or Daldry or Jerry Zaks, these are people who. Any of them, all of them, none of them spent a lot of time congratulating themselves. They would see it, they'd watch a preview, and if it went well, they'd give themselves a moment of satisfaction, like we nailed that, now what's next? It was always how to make it better. I remember William Ivy Long, the costume designer, said once, just in passing, funny how people say things in passing that they don't even know the power of what they're saying sometimes. Remember he said to me once, we were in previews, I think we were doing cabaret on Broadway, and something wasn't right. It was a button on a jacket.
Okay.
And he said, well, Kenny, he said, but we can make it better for tomorrow. And he walked away. And I thought, and that is the difference between the great artists in whatever line of work you're in and the ones, that it's always about how do we make it better for tomorrow. We couldn't get it tonight, but we can make it better for tomorrow. And every night, for the audience watching it, every night is opening night. They weren't here on opening night. This is their opening night tonight.
Indeed.
You could be at a Sunday matinee, and they've never been here before. For them, this is your chance, folks. This is your opening night. And if you can make it better for tomorrow, you make it better for tomorrow, no matter what it is. And it was the buttons on a coat for William. And that's why William is who he is. That's why he's been at the top of his game for so long, and so sought after. Is because he's always looking like all those great folks that I got to work with. Their attitude was always, good. Now, how do we make it better? Good. Now, how do we make it better for tomorrow? And that's why I say around here, my favorite phrase is, well, we're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there. And hopefully I never get there. You always want to believe, you always want to believe that there's more you could do.
You're striving for excellence.
Yeah.
I get it. And I think, there's no such thing as perfection.
No, but the pursuit of the
But
perfection.
the pursuit of that excellence or perfection
Yes.
is well worth the time, energy, and effort. So, I think this has been incredible.
So great.
BT,
Thanks
thank
so
you so
much.
much. Tell us where, or tell me, or share with us, where can we learn more about La Mirada Theater, website, social media, the whole nine, however to get tickets and all that.
Yeah, we're on Facebook. We have a great Facebook, social media presence, and LaMiradaTheater.com is the place where you can, find out about the shows and get tickets. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Super, super easy. There's a bunch of hashtags for it, but yeah, I was going to say Instagram, X or Twitter, YouTube, all La Mirada Theater. So very nice to make life super easy there. This has been incredible.
Thank you so much.
BT McNicholl, thank you very much,
you.
sir. Appreciate it. And you have no excuse but to come out and join us because we want to see you out and about this weekend.